Hello, I'm Dr. Louise, and this is Dr. Louise Thinks, a channel dedicated to helping everyday folks connect with the healing power of philosophy. The past few videos, we've been focused on the philosophy of friendship. But today we're going to be going in a slightly different direction. It turns out when you have friends or family or even just coworkers, you sometimes have to get down and dirty with a difficult conversation or two. If you're in the US, you might be feeling this right now, especially with the upcoming election and the Thanksgiving holiday just around the corner. But I have good news. Philosophy has a bunch of tools that can help us navigate these kind of conversations whenever they come up in your everyday life. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving an overview of several different big philosophic ideas that can help you navigate the complicated and sometimes emotionally charged waters of difficult conversations. These ideas are going to be coming primarily from Western philosophy as well as Buddhist philosophy. It turns out the struggle in having difficult conversations is a universal human experience, so it's not too surprising that we have resources from outside of the Western canon to help us out. Now, as we move through these, I want you to let me know in the comments, do any of them particularly catch your eye? Would you like a more in-depth exploration of them? This is definitely a series that we could do, so let me know if you have any interest in that in the comments. So, whenever you find yourself roped into a difficult conversation, whether it's because you feel like you have to say something after someone has perhaps said something slightly problematic, or you feel like you just have to discuss the topic because it's so urgent in today's world, something that is very important, definitely going to help you out in this conversation is epistemic humility. Let's talk about it. So to get us started, let's talk about the word epistemology. This is a word that comes from the Greek words episteme and logos. It's usually translated as the study of knowledge. So an epistemologist is a philosopher who asks questions like, how do you know that? So when it comes to epistemic humility, what we're doing is we are being humble about what it is that we know. In other words, when we're practicing epistemic humility, we are recognizing the possibility that we might be wrong about whatever it is we're claiming to know, even if we are quite confident that we're right. When you fail to exercise epistemic humility, usually what happens is you believe that your knowledge is perfect, you are 100% correct, and perhaps even flawless, and everyone who disagrees with you is really just a fool. When we're engaging in these kind of difficult conversations with all these big emotions in the room, epistemic humility can definitely be helpful for a variety of reasons. First, it can help you keep your own ego in check. You may, in fact, have the right belief about the topic at hand. But even if that's true, it is always good to notice that your understanding could be flawed. No one likes to have a conversation with somebody who is acting as if they are perfect, and epistemic humility makes sure that we don't start doing that. Second, epistemic humility can make us more open and truly ready to listen to other people's perspective. Because if we're taking it seriously, it is possible that we are mistaken in our beliefs. It naturally makes it easier for us to genuinely explore the other person's ideas and perspective on the topic. This kind of genuine curiosity can really get us into a good conversational mode without feeling the need to get defensive or to become too intense within the context of the conversation. Finally, epistemic humility can be really useful because it builds trust with the person that you're speaking with. When we practice epistemic humility, we are opening the door to being informed by others. This in turn can make the person we're speaking with feel more valued and more respected in a way that we could never really do if we stayed in a state of arrogant competitiveness. Remember, even Socrates, one of the most famous Western philosophers, is well known for his practice of epistemic humility. Despite Socrates being well known throughout his community for being very wise, he went out of his way to claim that all I know is that I know nothing. While that particular position might be a little bit on the strong side, it is valuable to recognize the limits of your own understanding. Okay, so let's turn away from the West, which is something I love to do, and let's start talking about some Buddhist philosophy. So in case you didn't know, I'm not sure I've said it here on the channel before, I actually have a doctorate in philosophy, and one of the areas I specialized in was Buddhist philosophy. One of the very first papers I wrote on Buddhism was actually on the concept of Upaya. Roughly, Upaya translates as skillful means. Within the Buddhist context, Upaya is something that teachers exercise when they're working with their students of various skill levels. The thought here is that the teacher will meet the student wherever they are in their own understanding of the topic. The teacher's goal is to help the student get at least a little bit closer to truth. The teacher is not trying to get the student to perfectly understand what the right answers are. Instead, if the teacher can just get the student a little bit closer, even a really small amount to the truth, then that conversation is considered a success. This concept of Upaya is very powerful. And when we're having difficult conversations, it can help us for a few different reasons. First, we can recognize that within the confines of this one conversation, we're probably not going to get anyone to a perfect understanding of the truth. The most we're probably going to be able to do is try to get the person we're speaking with to get a little bit closer to that truth. Or alternatively, maybe we can open ourselves up so that they can bring us a little bit closer to truth as well. Either way, the goals of the exchange have to be realistic given the different levels of understanding the different participants have. Second, Upaya is really helpful because it kind of gives us permission to modify the way that we're talking about the topic so that the person we're speaking with can actually understand us. Now within Buddhism, this is very important because Siddhartha, sometimes he's referred to as the Buddha, he would say one thing to one group of people and a different thing, something that sounds almost like the opposite to another group of people. Right, so for example, he would speak about ultimate truth to monastics in a very different way than he would talk about it to people in the marketplace. Now, if we didn't take into account the fact that Siddhartha was speaking to different people with different skills levels, and as part of his work, he was trying to meet them where they are, we might think he was just straight up contradicting himself and effectively saying something nonsensical. But when we notice that people in the marketplace didn't have a lot of experience in understanding spiritual matters, it would make sense that Siddhartha would speak and teach to them in a different way than monastics who are full-time working on spiritual matters. So if we're going to practice Upaya in a tough conversation, we want to think about how this person relates to the world. What kinds of things make sense to them? What metaphors or examples would be relatable to them? Even if you end up not explaining your idea perfectly, if the person gets a little bit closer to truth, you will have had a successful conversation. Another concept from Buddhist philosophy that can help us with tough conversations is the concept of non-attachment. Now, when I was teaching Buddhist philosophy at university, my students would often get this a little bit wrong. So let me try to explain it clearly for y'all. Now, on the one side, you've got attachment. In the context of a conversation, this might look like feeling really strongly about the outcome of the conversation or really needing the conversation to go a particular direction. It might be something like you feel like you need to get the person to agree with your perspective. It might also look like trying to get the person to give up a problematic belief. Now, if you're attached to whatever the goal is in that conversation, you're going to have a very strong need. You're really going to be wrapped up in the desire to get a certain outcome of the conversation. And if the conversation does not go the way that you were hoping, you might have the experience that you failed. So that's one side of our spectrum. On the other side, we have something called detachment. In the context of a tough conversation, detachment might look something like not caring at all about what the person has to say. You might not really be trying because you've committed strongly to the idea that this doesn't matter, nothing matters, I don't care about this, I have no feelings here. That is detachment. This is a kind of intentionally exerting your energy to kind of reject the idea that there is anything meaningful or important happening within the context of this tough conversation. So detachment is active in the same way that attachment is active. Both require exerting energy to either say this matters a lot to me or this doesn't matter at all to me. Now on the spectrum, there is something in the middle. And that middle ground is called non-attachment. It is not active in the same way attachment is and detachment is. So within the context of our conversation, someone who is non-attached might feel that the conversation is going to go well or it's going to go bad. It's just going to go. Either way, everything is going the way that it should be going. Non-attachment, this middle ground between attachment and detachment, this is really the recommendation from Buddhist philosophy, that we should try to foster this attitude of non-attachment. That way we don't start getting wrapped up in our desires and thinking of things we need, and we are also not spending all our energy trying to reject desire or the things that we want. The thought here is that non-attachment is just going to overall produce less suffering than being attached or detached. You are, in fact, suffering when you are attached to an outcome in the conversation because you kind of told yourself a story that you need something in this space. And you suffer when you detach because you're now telling yourself a story about deprivation and rejection. It probably, if you step back from any particular tough conversation, it's just not true that you absolutely need the conversation to go somewhere. And it's also probably true for any tough conversation that you really don't care at all, and none of this at all matters. Usually, if we're at the point where we're engaging in conversation, there's more going on than just this doesn't matter at all. The thought here for the tough conversation is that it's better to accept the conversation for what it is and however it's going to go, rather than spend your time building yourself up in an attached way or tearing yourself down in a detached way. That's why we have the middle here, non-attachment. So I want to hear what you think. Have you used any of these ideas or anything similar to this in your own conversations? Is there another approach that you've learned from somewhere else that you'd like to share? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey through practical philosophy and want more tools for your daily life, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss future episodes. And until next time, stay curious, be thoughtful, and keep asking those questions. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.